Mirror self-love story. She stood before the mirror every morning, as if it were a ritual. At first, it was a mere habit, checking her hair, brushing her teeth, making sure the day's clothes looked right. But slowly, it became something else. Each time her eyes met her reflection, something inside her recoiled. The mirror reflected more than just the physical. It reflected her insecurities, doubts, and fears. It showed her a face she couldn't escape, a body she had learned to criticize, and emotions she had tried so hard to bury. The reflection staring back at her didn't comfort her, it questioned her. It reminded her of the flaws she hated to acknowledge. It asked the uncomfortable questions. Why aren't you proud of who you are? Why can't you be happy with what you see? The day she stood in front of the mirror felt like a quiet battle, a tug of war between the person she wanted to be and the person she thought she should be. She wasn't always this way. As a child, the mirror had been a place of wonder. It was a magical realm where she could dance freely, making silly faces, twirling in her dress without any worry. She was uninhibited then, full of life, and loved how her body moved. But time, with its endless comparisons and expectations, slowly eroded that innocence. The world began to fill her head with ideals of perfection, what her body should look like, how her face should appear, what others thought of her. Over time, the mirror turned from a playful friend to a cruel judge. The more she looked, the more she noticed every tiny imperfection and detail that didn't fit into society's idea of beauty. Voices surrounded her, some from well-meaning people, others from her own mind, telling her she wasn't enough. Your hair's too frizzy, they'd whisper. Your thighs are too wide. Your skin too pale. Your smile too forced. The voices became so loud that she couldn't even look at herself without hearing them. She avoided mirrors. She avoided photographs. She dimmed the lights in her room when she dressed, never fully examining herself. She stopped wearing certain clothes she loved because they didn't seem to fit anymore. The mirror had become her enemy, the reflection, a painful reminder of everything she wasn't, everything she couldn't be. She tried to hide her flaws, but in doing so, she lost sight of the beauty that had always been there. But life, as it often does, pushes us to confront our deepest fears. After a particularly overwhelming week, filled with long hours at work and the emotional toll of constantly feeling like she was failing, she found herself in front of the mirror again. This time, however, something was different. Maybe it was exhaustion or a deep need to face herself, but she didn't look away this time. She stood there, staring at her reflection. Her heart raced, her breath shallow. She didn't like what she saw, but this time she didn't retreat. Instead, she took a deep breath, trying to quiet the inner voices that screamed at her. She stared at herself not as a critic, but as someone she wanted to understand. The woman in the mirror looked tired, her shoulders heavy with the weight of responsibility, with the exhaustion of carrying too many burdens. Dark circles were under her eyes, and the usual smile seemed absent, replaced by the shadow of doubt. But what she saw next surprised her. Beneath the tiredness, there was something more. There was a strength in her posture, a quiet resilience in how she held herself. Though tinged with sadness, her eyes had a spark, faint but undeniable. And suddenly, she realized something. This woman wasn't broken. She was surviving. She was doing the best she could, and that was enough. With that realization, she began talking to the woman in the mirror. At first, the words felt awkward, foreign. "You're doing okay," she whispered one morning, as if speaking to a scared child. The words felt strange on her lips, like a lie she didn't believe, but she said them anyway. It's okay not to be perfect. Slowly, over time, the affirmations became easier. You are doing your best. You survived the hardest moments of your life. Each day, she said something kinder, something more compassionate. Instead of focusing on the flaws, she started to look at the whole picture. The woman in the mirror was more than the sum of her insecurities. She was the result of years of struggles, growth, and endurance. She was more than enough, just as she was. Some days, the journey felt like 2 steps forward and 1 step back. There were moments when the self-doubt crept back in, when the old voices returned louder than before. On those days, she would stand in front of the mirror again and let herself feel the sadness, the frustration, the anger. She didn't try to force a smile or pretend everything was fine. She allowed herself to feel her emotions, acknowledging them without judgment. She would remind herself that healing wasn't linear, that it was okay not always to have it together. The mirror, once a place of judgment, had become a place of honesty. She began to look at her reflection with compassion, accepting the bad days as part of her journey. On the good days, when self-love felt easier to embrace, she smiled at the woman in the mirror. It wasn't the smile of someone who had it all figured out, but the smile of someone who was learning to love themselves, flaws and all. She started to wear colors that made her feel alive. She laughed without holding back. She said no when she needed to without guilt. She stopped trying to be someone else. She realized that confidence didn't come from trying to become someone better, but from accepting who she already was. And one quiet morning, much like all the others before it, she stood in front of the mirror, and the woman staring back at her smiled. Not because she had changed everything, but because she had stopped needing to. The reflection no longer seemed to criticize her. Instead, it showed her what she had always been: enough. For the first time in a long time, she saw herself through the eyes of compassion, and for the first time, she believed it. That's it for now. Please let us know in the comments what you learned from this video. Thanks for your time. See you later.